and just see what what it's telling you, and you really need to understand the results. Now this is obviously not a Class A surface here. I mean, the reflections are going to hit this at interesting angles, and up here the transition's probably not ideal because it kind of tapers off here at the end. But in the end, like I said, decide what you want to do with the model, decide what your intent is, and go from there. There's no reason that you should spend hours and hours trying to get these surfaces right if you're just trying to make a general representation of the part. I'm going to go ahead and save this now. I deleted the mirror and I deleted the knit, so we're back down to just these two surfaces. Now let's go ahead and let's finish off the top of this thing. I'm going to do a sketch on the right plane, turn the side blueprint back on, and come over here and create our geometry. Alright, so what we want to do is there's an intersection point up here on the front between this horizontal line we used for our mid-plane and this vertical line. And it's a perfect place to just snap that spline to. Now here we actually have curvature leading up into the spline that we're creating here. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add a equal curvature relation and see what that gives us. Alright, I mean that puts us way out here, and obviously that's not exactly what we want. But we haven't adjusted this handle at all yet, and that is going to be a big driving factor in that curvature relation. So we're going to come in here and let's give this handle a angle. Let's just call it 30 degrees and give it a dimension. That's pretty close. We'll give it 1600. So one thing to note, that this curvature relation that you're adding, it's actually giving this tangent relation here as well as driving the weight of this handle. And it's doing that by matching the weight of this for a certain amount away from this intersection point. So you might be wondering, yeah, it's actually tangent there, but tangent along with this weight that really gives it that equal curvature relation. Alright, let's exit out of that sketch and go ahead and draw on the top mid-plane. And we're going to do essentially the same thing. We're going to draw a spline here, those points to those points. Now we're going to give this equal curvature, and up front here, now if you remember, we're going to be mirroring across this mid-plane here. I'm going to give this a horizontal relation and turn on my top blueprint and see what we have. Alright, so we need to pull this handle out, and once it looks about right, let's go ahead and just give it a dimension. Alright, 1800. Well, 1800 looks about right. Alright, let me exit out of here. Alright, I'm going to save this thing real quick. And let's go ahead and let's just make a filled surface between these three and see what we have to work with. Alright, so this back edge, both of these splines were curvature. Let's add a curvature relation and okay that. You can see, if you look at how the light hits these two surfaces, it's a very nice transition across there. You don't really get any big jumps. There's no discontinuity between that, the reflection that you see there, and that's good. That's what we want to see when we're talking about these, the G1 and the G2 continuity when you're talking about surfacing. But one thing that we might not, instantly see is the curvature in this area here. Now you see we've got a big flat spot right there. Now we need to decide, is that acceptable? Is that what we want, or do we need to rethink this? So I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to delete that fill, and let's make some helper surfaces. First, I'm going to extrude that the same 500 millimeters, and what I'm going to do for this one here, if you remember when we created helper 4, which was this boundary surface here, we had, let's see which sketch it was, sketch 11. Let's make that visible. This line here matched it was tangent to this at that intersection point. So what we want to do, a sketch on the right plane, I'm going to draw a line that intersects up there. I'm going to make this line equal in length, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make it tangent at that point. Alright, so now what we can do is we can come back here, we'll make a boundary surface, go there for direction 1, and we'll use both of these for direction 2. Alright, so now we have all 3 of our helper surfaces, and the nice thing is, if we ever go back and change this spline, or if we change this spline, these edges down here that are defining the surface, they're going to keep that tangent relation, so we don't need to worry about any issues arising. Let's go ahead and let's create a filled surface. Go from there, there, and there. Alright, that back edge, we still want to apply that curvature relation because we're trying to match the surrounding geometry. For these other two, we know they're flat. Let's just apply a tangent relation and see what we get out of it. Alright, boundary surface, let's call that helper 5, surface extrude, helper 6. Obviously I'm not naming these in order. 6 was before 5. I don't really care about that, I just care that they're named helper, so when I go back to delete them, all I have to look at is the name of them. Alright, so here let's look, we've still got this nice reflection going across this edge as we rotate it back and forth, and let's turn the curvature analysis on. Alright, so we still get this kind of a scattered line here, but this may just be a product of this curvature tool. It might be my graphics card if yours looks any better or worse. So there's a lot of factors that go into determining this stuff. And if you look here, we cross over the surface, and then we kind of get this, this funny flat spot here. Now, if you remember, black is going to be a very small amount of curvature here. Our extruded surfaces, if we turn some of those back on, if you remember, those were all black because there was no change in curvature. Now, of course, this one, you can see the light section here, because it is curving in this direction. There is a small amount of change. Let's hide these again. And let's go ahead and, just like we did before, I'm going to mirror this across. One thing that I like to do, it might be overkill, is I'll mirror these, I'll knit them together, and I'll save the file, and I'll probably go in and actually do a couple quick renders. Now, when you're talking about, you can see here we've got this white section here, and then it transitions into this. The curvature is changing quite a bit. A render, and depending on the environment you pick, will really bring out a lot of issues in surfaces. Now, the resolution here, I've got some of my performance settings turned down, so everything moves around pretty fast. And we can kind of look at these reflections as they go across these lines. They don't look bad. I mean, they're certainly not 100% perfect, but in terms of what we're actually modeling here, I think they're pretty good, and I don't think we need to worry about any of these curvature relations here. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that knit, delete that mirror, and save it again. Alright, so at this point, let's turn the side blueprint back on, and let's take a look at that. So, I mean, so far you can see there's a few spots where we dipped below a little bit here, maybe we went a little bit past. If we look at this thing from the top, the geometry that we created, it's not necessarily perfect, but in terms of a representation